welcome to Women's Wealth, the podcast with me, Joanne. My mission is to educate, inspire, and empower you all to step into your own life of wealth. That feeling of being so rich in your mind, body, and soul. I'm so happy to have you here. Let's get straight into it. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Wealth with Joanne. I am Joanne. I'm so happy that you're here, whether you're watching over on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast streaming site. While you're here, please do me a favor, like and subscribe if you enjoy what you're listening to, if you find yourself coming back every week, because it really does help. It helps people to find me who may not necessarily already have me on socials and find me that way. So very much appreciated, and thank you in advance. So let's get on with today's podcast. Now, as you know, this is a space that I've created for us to talk about anything and everything. So women's wealth is feeling amazing as a woman. It is your physical health, emotional health, your spiritual health, mental health, everything, how you nourish your body. And all of my podcast episodes cover all of these topics, from your periods to witchcraft, spells, manifestation, back to nutrition, intuitive eating, all of the things. And one topic that I think, well, I haven't spoken about this yet, but is up there to feel wealthy, is women's safety. And this is what I want to talk about today, because as a woman in society today, I am questioning whether or not we've actually come anywhere. Have we even improved? Now, I know, yes, as a whole, we can probably say, yeah, we have improved from safety from maybe the 1800s, 1900s. But some of the things I want to talk about today, it's modern day safety. And this has been, I guess you've all seen the news lately of the Pakistani grooming gangs. And I don't even want to use the word grooming, because it wasn't just grooming, but just for the sake of YouTube, I'm going to use that word. Now, I believe it to be something much more sinister. Like, grooming is absolutely disgusting, but it's what happens after the grooming that I just don't even have words. But I know if you're listening to this, you will know, and I am sure that you have those same feelings. But because of YouTube, that's what I'm going to use today. And this is what's inspired me, because I was reflecting on other things that I've seen in the media. Now, as you know, I don't watch the news, so I get all of my news from podcasts, from YouTube, from the likes of Andrew Gold and Sonia Poulton in the UK, and Joe Rogan. Who else? You know, when you put yourself on the spot, you forget. But they are up there, and they've spoken about these topics and some of the things that are happening. And of course, I can only talk about the UK. I'm from the UK. I'm English, but I don't live there, so I have a nice comparison. As over the last 8 years, I've lived abroad, and when I go back home, this is I'm going to share today. I'm just going to share today, and I want to question that: are we slipping? What is going on? And are women really, really safe? So we live in an era. So 2025. We walk around, and not just 2025. It's only January. So the era of the 2000s, of women empowerment, and women are equal, and we have all of these same rights, and all of the things. But what I feel like is that's overshadowing reports of violence, harassment, and a lot of these failures seem to be coming from the systems that are actually meant to be protecting us. Those systems that women in the past worked so hard to try and get equality, I feel are really letting women down. And again, these are my opinions, these are my feelings, completely based on my own experiences from living in the UK, growing up in the UK, and now when I go back home to the UK and my experiences there. And I'm sure that if I just said to you now, which I am going to do, name me a high profile case of a woman that we all know of that raised concerns that made us fear for our own lives. And the most recent, I'm going to go into the cases as we go in, but as women, we put all of these things into place so that we do feel safe. And even then, we're not. So let's get into it. At the moment, I'm sort of tiptoeing around what I want to talk about, because I don't want to get into it from the very beginning. It's only 4 minutes in. But let's begin. So I want to start with my own personal stories, because obviously these are my experiences, and this is what shapes my belief and my framework, or whatever you want to call it, over to what's happening today. Now, as I'm talking, I encourage you just to reflect on your own life, your own sort of beliefs, and when did you first become aware that you weren't safe as a girl, as a female, as a woman? So it would have been when you were a girl. And I'll always remember my mum saying to me that she basically gave me the talk to say, if a man ever touches you where he shouldn't, then you must let me know that they shouldn't be doing that. And I was only, I think, maybe about 10. And obviously I didn't understand that. I just thought, I don't know what I thought, but I can remember her telling me that. And of course, you don't understand that. You carry on being a little girl. And then this was in junior school as well. I remember we had a letter sent home, and I know this still happens today. I saw it on the news. And again, this is what spurred me, that letters were sent home to warn of men who were hanging outside schools. And I remember being kept in, not just me, the whole class, because there was basically just a weird man outside. So obviously at that time you don't know, and you're like, what is this? Why is this man stood outside school? Why can't we go home? And then same thing in high school, same thing when I was in college. When I was in high school, there were so many incidences of, we were running cross country, and obviously back in the day when health and safety in schools wasn't the same, that we were just allowed to run off. You'd run around the school grounds, out of the school grounds, we'd go onto the train tracks. And I remember one day there was a weird man there, and we all had to get called in from PE. Another time as a teenager, I think it was raining, and me and my friend went into the telephone box to keep dry, and a man came up to the telephone box and exposed himself. And I remember I didn't tell my mum about that. Well, obviously we should have phoned the police, but we didn't know. But it was really scary after that. Every time you saw a man, it was like, oh my God. And I think when I was about 14, me and my friends were just, as we used to, we didn't have phones, just hanging around, sitting on the gas box or whatever, chatting, and a silver car came up and told us to get into the car, a man in a car. I think we ran off. We were actually outside school, and we ran into the school, and the police were in the school. And I think it had already been flagged. So they asked us, was it a silver car? And we're like, yes, it was. So, these incidences that happen that you kind of log. So then when you are out on your own, or I remember as a teenager, my friends didn't live too far from me. It was 15-minute walk, but I would run home and I wouldn't go through. So we had this little cut through. So if it was dark, you would not go through the cut through unless you were with a boy. If you were walking home with one of your male friends, when you used to hang around together as teenagers. So if I was walking home with one of the boys, then yeah, we'd go through the cut through. But if I was on my own, I would run all the way home, the long way, so that I was in the street lights. And that's never changed. If I go back to the UK, to be honest, now I wouldn't even walk in the dark. But I wouldn't go through the cut through now in the day, because of the reasons that I'm sharing today. Like, has it gone backwards, or is it just me being more aware? And, I have so many other examples. I was walking home from a night out, so I would have been in my 20s, and a man tried to get me and my friend in the car, and we had to run back to the club. So this was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and now I think, oh my God, what were you doing walking around at 3 o'clock in the morning? Like, how crazy. And all of these things that we do as girls. Now, because I'm a millennial, as I was of age to go out, we had mobile phones. So before it was a camera phone, we would send the number plate of the car if we were getting in a taxi on our own. But we would rarely get in a taxi on our own, because Well, we didn't want to. So then the whole night out was planned around you would stay at somebody's house. So you wouldn't have to get in a taxi on your own. So very rare have I ever got in a taxi in the UK on my own, because then we had horror stories and true stories of women that we knew, girls that we knew, that would be driven to somewhere else and the taxi driver tries to, do whatever they try to do with the girl. And then flash forward to camera phones, we would take a picture of the number plate if we did have to go home alone. But again, it was all based around sleepovers. Even in our 20s, late 20s, we would make sure that, right, we're going out, you can stop at mine so we don't have to get a taxi on our own. So all of these things that we put in place that we don't actually say out loud is because we're scared of getting odd. I don't think I can say the word on YouTube. Assaulted, murdered, kidnapped, you name it, that's what we were scared of. Even to the point of, and I know people joke about women going to the toilet in twos. Now, a lot of the time, that is because they have a natter and they're putting makeup on. But I remember when I first started going out to bars, we would go in twos because the male toilets were so close to the female toilets in some places, and it would be quite scary if the toilet was empty. And like even now, if the toilet's empty, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to go, just in case a man walks in. And these fears are kind of ingrained. Yes, I've got those examples of, indecent exposure and people trying to get me and my friends into their cars. And these stay with you. And again, which leads me to the question that I'm going to keep asking. Have we slipped backwards? Because all of those fears now in a lot of Western countries are actually being heightened because the safe spaces are being taken away to make other people happy. There are lots of mixed spaces. Even last summer when I went home and we went into Wagamama's and my brother went to the toilet and came back and was really staring at me. And I was like, what's wrong with you? And he said, do you need the toilet? And I was like, no, that's a bit random, but no, I don't. But then towards the end, I had to go to the toilet and they were unisex toilets. Now, I'm not a prude. Like, I have been into unisex toilets, but in the places that you kind of expect them. So in Manchester on Canal Street, but it's a different energy there. And when it's just in a normal restaurant or a normal bar, it's kind of like, I'm on edge. I'm on edge straight away. And again, this is my own personal belief, my own personal opinion, that I feel like we need to have these safe spaces. We need to be able to go to the toilet without the fear of being attacked in the toilet. And I would love to hear some of your own stories, some of your own fears, and where have they come from? Because you might never have experienced anything yourself. As a teenager, you might have not been hanging around with your friends and there's a man that's like, get in the car and you've had to make a run for it. But we always know somebody that has happened to. So a friend of a friend. And like I said, a girl, I can picture the girl now. And she was the girl that the taxi driver took up the lanes. And, within a week, everybody knew about that. And that, again, from even now, I am really nervous in the back of a taxi. Luckily now we have Uber, and I share my Uber drive with my partner and my sister. So they have the number plate. I know my sister's in a different country, but even here in the UAE, I share it so they know where I am, where I'm going, and they can keep a track on the Uber. And again, that goes because that's so ingrained in me, that feeling of unsafety. And we've all done it. We've all pretended to be on the phone in the car, or we've all pretended to walk down the street on the phone. But now we have that, do I pretend to walk down the street on my phone, or am I going to get my phone nicked? Or do I put my headphones in, or are they going to get pinched? But I need to hear the man behind me. I need to carry my keys, so then if I do get attacked, I've got a weapon in my hand. I need to walk under the street lights, planning out the journey that, right, okay, if someone comes, their lights are on. I can knock on that house over there because the lights are on. I can make a run for it, and I don't want to walk past the alley, so I'm going to go round the way. So I'd love to hear some of your anecdotes, some of your stories. Like, share them in the comments. And then let's get on to where I feel that the system is failing women and the protection of women. And again, specifically in the UK. And these past few weeks, and this has been brewing in the news for years and years and years, and this is the gangs, the Pakistani gangs. And when I was growing up, it wasn't, we kind of knew not to go around those type of men. There were girls, and when I look back and reflect now, I really hope that it wasn't happening to them, and it was kind of just an infatuation into older men that worked in the kebab shop. You know, it's something that I reflected on as an adult and think, oh my God, especially when I heard about this, like, oh my God, I wonder if that's what was going on. And it always made me feel uncomfortable. I was never in that situation, but I've seen the men, and they do try and wield you in with pizza, with chips, with alcohol, with cigarettes. And I was always like, no, I don't like it. And I kept myself away from it. I will never know. I'll never know if that's what was going on or that's what the aim was. But that would have been, what, 20 years ago, 25 years ago now. So fast forward to recent years and the exposure of the grooming gangs in the north. And I'm from Stoke-on-Trent, which is, depending on who you speak to, some will say the north, some say the Midlands, some say North Midlands. I would associate myself more with the north than the Midlands because it's very working class, not very affluent area. You know, very white, working class. And the areas that did have Pakistanis, Indians, we kind of all kept segregated. And I think it still is like that now, and which is very similar throughout the north, that it's very segregated. So again, this is something that the government are failing with there, of this idea of multiculturalism, because everyone keeps themselves separate, because not everyone wants to be multicultural. So a lot of British people want to be British. Pakistanis want to be Pakistanis. You know, Indians want to be Indian. I know there are a lot of British born, but they, you know, at home probably still follow a lot of their traditions. So we can't completely wipe out culture. I live in a country that's completely different to my culture. And yes, within my circles, within my home, I'm not practicing their culture, the culture here. It's my culture in my home. But outside of the house, we do integrate and we do follow the rules and we do follow the societal expectations here. But what is different to what is happening in the UK, I have the fear of deportation. I do not want to be deported for breaking any rules and upsetting anybody. So I follow them to the T because this is now my home, but I am a guest in this country. So I follow the rules. And yes, within our little bubble, we have our own culture, but in the wider scale, we are following the rules of the country. Anyway, I've just gone off on a tangent. So the grooming, the gangs in the UK, and it's an awful, awful story, and it will still be going on now. And it really raises questions of vulnerable women who they were targeting because of the cultural differences, because of the areas of working class, that coming from a working class home that you may never have even had a takeaway because it's expensive, that suddenly this man is wanting to give you a free pizza. And as a teenager, that is like, whoa, you know, as an adult, we're like, okay, we know, but you don't have those thoughts and feelings as a teenager. And this is what they're prying on. And it doesn't only stop at the grooming gangs. So as an adult woman, and again, most of you listening to this have probably experienced the hounding in the street of being followed by these men, because culturally it's very different. And again, the governments, the systems that are put into place are not protecting women by teaching these people how to behave. And yes, we all have the wolf whistles from white men on the building sites. I know, again, that's kind of had a stop put to it, but that was kind of like, you can laugh that off. They're not following you down the street. They're not harassing you, following you to your door and literally not giving up until you have to be really horrible to them. It's kind of like, eye roll, that's disgusting, and you get on with your day. And what these stories actually highlight is for me, again, my own personal opinion, I don't want anyone coming at me saying, I'm being inappropriate, but there's a choice that has to be made. Is it a question of priority, and has women's safety been pushed to the back of that priority list in order to not come across as, I don't know what reason you would do, what reason you would do that. Sorry, I'm losing my words here, because it's something that I have so much to say, and it just doesn't come out sometimes because my mind is full of it. I'm guessing it's a little bit of anger that comes through, because I see this on the news and I hear all the stories and other women talking, and I'm just like, what is going on? And I have a niece who's 14, 15. And honestly, I think about things and I'm like, oh my God. And I message her sometimes. I'm like, just make sure you don't do this and don't go here. And, ring your mom. And I say to my sister, make sure you've got your location devices on, because it's a dog eat woman world out there, so it seems. So we've got the gangs, the young girls. And I forgot to mention as well, when I was teaching in the UK, this was a thing. We had a training session on looking for the signs of grooming. And again, the young girls there, I worked in a school that was one of the biggest council estates in Europe. Very working class, not even working class, lower than working class. People didn't work, it was benefits, and the girls there were very vulnerable. And we would have training on the signs to look for, what they were saying, and there was many, many incidences of that. Many, many incidences. And I can remember thinking then that surely you're going to be chasing these people. Like, we're asked to report it, and then what? Because the girls are still going to these places, and the parents would be saying, we need help. And it was like, there's only so much I can do as a school teacher. We also have the high-profile case of Sarah Everard. Was that 2021? And I think this is just a perfect example of, she did all of the things that we all do because she was walking home. She rang her friend. She let her friend know when she was coming. And what let her down, what ended her life, was an actual policeman. Someone who we, as women, would think, oh my God, yes, there's a policeman here. Oh, I can relax. Yes, I will have a lift home, and you will know if you're walking home, you're on tenterhooks, every noise. If you think someone's behind you, it's awful. You're kind of holding your breath for the whole walk. So if a policeman comes up and asks you, or shows you the badge, like, I'm a policeman, you shouldn't be walking around. Do you want me to take you home? Yes, of course, we should have that trust. But again, how was this allowed to slip through? And I know that the man in question here he had red flags against his name, and he'd been in trouble for a few things. But again, was it to save face? Was it to protect him? Who knows? But what actually happened was a young woman lost her life. And again, highlighting there, it's just another notch on the belt for women to think, right, okay, there was Sarah, okay, that was recent. And I know the story of Nicola Bulley that was, I think it was labelled an accident, but of course, what people all jump to is women's safety, because that is what is forgotten about. And there's also social media and the mainstream media, that when women do come out with these stories, they're blamed. There's a lot of victim blaming, that, what she was wearing, she was drunk, these excuses that, she shouldn't have been doing this. And they are not excuses. What a woman wears should not be a label on her back to harm her. That is her choice, especially in a Western country. She is allowed to wear what she wants. And again, in one of the documentaries I watched this week about the gangs, that They see that it's still happening as an invitation, and it's not. But again, we're being let down by the people at the top that are not supporting women in this way, who are not making it clear that this does not happen here. And it happens all over the world. And unfortunately, in some cultures, this is the norm. And again, I can only speak from a UK Western culture that isn't the norm, and it shouldn't be the norm. So what can we do other than support each other, other than ask these questions, other than standing up and protecting ourselves? Because as somebody that left the UK 8 years ago now, and I go home, every single time I go home, I really notice a difference. And it's not just small differences. It is huge differences. And I'm coming from a place of a completely different culture. And a lot of people say to me that, oh my God, women can't do this where you are, women can't do that. And I do have to explain to them that actually what's important to me is feeling safe. What's important to me is not having to worry when I'm walking the streets, which I don't do often. I'm not walking the streets often, but there have been times when I've been walking, got in late at night and needed to take the dogs for a walk, or me and my friends couldn't get a taxi, so we've just done the walk and we've been walking with our phones in our hands and Google Maps, and actually said to each other that, God, we couldn't do this in the UK. And we have that safety. And we are able to, there's cameras in the taxis, and there's female taxi drivers. If you want to opt for that, you can request a female. There's female only gyms, so you can go and it's only females. And I really love a female only gym. I would argue that who is more oppressed here? Because when I go back to the UK, I am scared. When I went home in April last year, I went for a walk to town, and I said to my mum, will I be okay walking along the canal? She was just like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I actually thought that she was going to go, yeah, you'll be fine. She's like, no, don't. And I didn't listen. I did get on the canal for the first little bit, but she did also tell me, don't wear them. I have my headphones on my head. Take them off when you get to town. And I was like, I'll be all right. She's just exaggerating. And I got on the canal and I ended up getting off at the very next bridge because I was just on edge. I needed to walk next to the road because I was scared. So I ended up walking the whole way around into town. As soon as I got into town, it was like Zombie Nation, dystopian. There was a fight. There was police. I took my headphones off because then there were people looking at me, and I was like, are they going to pull these off my head? And in all fairness, there was also a woman within the group of people that were staring, but I still didn't feel safe because of the substances it looked like they were on. And did I end up getting a taxi? No, I did walk home, but I walked home the long way. And I walked through town, and it was just... I had planned to have a little walk around, a little stroll. I got a coffee and I walked home. So I got my steps in, so that was the positive. But then there was like the gangs, and I remember just being a teenager, and we didn't have a gang. I wasn't in a gang, but there would have been a lot of us. And at the weekends when we were in town, we were split up all of the time. No more than five, no more than five. You can't be in a group, no more than five. We weren't doing anything. We were literally just hanging around. We used to sit outside Superdrug, in a gang, in a group, and then we'd walk around for a bit, and then we'd go to McDonald's, then we'd walk back around. But we always got split up by security. But there were so many, and I don't know where they were from, Eastern European, Pakistani, I don't know. There was just groups of them. And when you walk past, it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's really uncomfortable. And in my head, I remember thinking, where's security splitting up these men? Because we were teenagers and we got split up. So, of course, I've told a lot of my experiences, my beliefs, my opinions there. But we also have the numbers. The numbers don't lie. So if you're a numbers person, so I have some here. First one, according to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women globally has experienced physical or sexual violence in her lifetime, most often by an intimate partner. That's over 1 billion women worldwide. And I know that if you sat down with your friends, 2 friends, so there's 3 of you, I would argue that, and I know I'm just thinking of my group of friends in the area that I grew up in, I think that it might even be 3 and 3. And I know this is a worldwide stat and I'm just making it really small. But I know from most conversations I've ever had with another woman about exes, about walking the streets, and about, all of the examples that I've given today, I feel like every woman has their own story. And if you don't, I wouldn't wish it on you for the world, because it's awful. And I hope that you're able to walk around without that fear in your belly, which I'm very doubtful, because you will have heard it from your friends. And in the UK alone, in 2023, there was 1.6 million cases of abuse, violence on women. And that's the ones that were reported. How many go unreported? And I wouldn't even like to, I feel like it might be even double that. I think maybe half of the women don't report it. So if it's 1.6 million that are reported, I would argue that there's probably 3 million a year. Just let those numbers sink in. And then we go back to my question that I asked at the start. Is this getting any better? Is it? Or are we always going to be living in a world where there's this threat of violence for if you're a woman? And especially in the Western world, is this ever going to get any better? So 81%, yes, that's 81%. I'm just going to say that again into the microphone a little bit more clearly, of women worldwide have had some kind of harassment from a person of the opposite sex. So whether that's on the street, in the toilets, at work, 81, it might as well be 100 if it's 81%. Like, I would love to know how the 21% have got away with it, because that's how frequent it happens. Like, how have you managed to get through your life without it? I don't know, maybe they're really strong, really strong women, so they maybe just didn't notice it was happening. I don't know. I don't know about that one. But yeah, if you're one of the 21%, let me know. I'd like to chat. And 56% of women don't feel safe walking the streets. I haven't got the year down for that. I think that's probably a lot more as well. Unless it depends on obviously where you live. Because if you asked people here, most of them, I think it would be a high percentage would feel safe. But if you ask people I know at home, I don't think anyone would walk. If you're listening to this and you're in the UK, do my own little poll, is it more than 56%, do you think? Let me know. I'm sure it is. And then we've got trafficking. 71% of the people, that are trafficked are female. So again, and that's worldwide. So how are we being protected from that worldwide? Is there anything? I don't know. Again, these all rhetorical questions, all these questions think, how is this going on? How is this going on? How can the people that are in the criminals, obviously they're criminals, they're clever, but with all of the power from all of the governments that human trafficking, 71% of women, 71%, of people who are human trafficked are women. How are there not things in place to protect women from this? And of course, last example, we have serial killers who it's mostly women. And again, yes, there are serial killers that have killed men, but all the high profile serial killers, and I know, I was thinking about this the other day, so it does link to what we're saying, and I think it's like a safety thing. So people laugh about women, loving watching true crime and serial killers and all of the things. I think that subconsciously we do that, we enjoy that, because it's a little bit of a safety blanket that maybe we can work out what they're thinking, what they're going to do to help keep ourselves safe, because the institutions are not helping to keep us safe. So is that why we like watching true crime? Just my own little theory there. But again, what is going on? What are people doing to protect us from people like that? And my own personal answer to that is not a lot. I feel like a lot of institutions, and again, I can't talk about all of them because I don't live in all of the countries. I can only talk about the one that I grew up in. And I feel like at the moment, and previous governments as well, are too scared of upsetting other groups of people that women get pushed to the back of the priority list. And just to be fair, I'm not going to put it on just on the institutions, because I think as people are very powerful, and we forget this, that without sounding too much like power to the people, let's all rebel. One thing that we have that the governments are afraid of is people power, and they will do anything to stop people power. And I think what we need to do in this situation is come together, is to bring forward this people power. Because if there is enough people stepping up and fighting for the cause, then something has to be done about it. Now, I don't know the facts and stats of that and how this, but it needs to be. Did this hundreds of years ago when the suffragettes, stood up for women's rights. They wanted the vote. They wanted more equality. Yes, we have that now, but we're still not safe. And for me, safety is more important than feeling like I can work the same as a man, because I don't want to get murdered. So that's just my own opinion. I would love to hear your own thoughts and opinions on this. I know it's quite a deep topic, and I know it's a topic that, and I keep saying it, it's my thoughts, my opinions, that everyone has their own thoughts and opinions on. Depending on where you grow up, that you're going to have a very different experience of this. Like I said, my background is very working class, lower than working class. Being in an area that is probably one of the most, I will look this up. Okay, so if you don't know the area that I come from, Stoke-on-Trent, so I've just Googled it, so it's the third most deprived local authority in the West Midlands, and it's the 9th most deprived metropolitan area in England out of 92. So out of 92 areas in England, my area that I grew up is number 9 as being the most deprived. It's one of the highest rates of poverty, very low working class. So, of course, growing up, it's an area that's been forgotten about. So my experiences will be different. My experiences will be that I feel like from as long as I've been old enough to go out without a parent, from, teenager until I probably left the UK, that I have that fear to walk around on my own. So let me know how you think. I am rambling on now because it's such a big topic and I feel so strongly about it. We can't be wealthy, WELLthy, women's wealth. We can't feel that if we're not safe. So we're putting all of the work in for ourselves, and it would be nice to be able to walk around the streets knowing that we're safe and we're supported, because we're doing that for ourselves at home. Anyway, goodbye everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and I will speak to you all in the next episode.